She's gonna tell you who does it.
Will you give us like a 3, 2, 1 so we can start the cameras or?
Yep. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, do we all have, wait, Mindy's still reading.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.5. We have the volume at right?
The name's Slade, Sam Slade. I used to work the day watch out of Homicide Division. Now my beat is the back bar of any run-down, flea-bag joint where the booze is cheap and nobody asks about your past. A cop spends a lot of time trying to pick up the pieces of someone else's broken life or shattered dreams. It's not a pretty life. Maybe that's why every cop from Bourbon Street to Broadway never loses the itch for the one big case that'll make his entire wretched life worth something. I had my chance at a case like that once. Thanks for the beer and the shot. Sit down, I'll tell you about it. I'll never forget the day she walked into my office. The first time I laid eyes on her, I knew I'd never meet another dame with more class than her. She went by many names, but always as partial to the one that had the sweetest ring to it. I always called her Liberty. That's all. Just Liberty. She had the kind of beauty what was impossible to describe. The kind that if somebody couldn't see it right off, you knew they'd never understand it. She was about 200 years old, always wore the same full-length gown, loose at the shoulders and hips. She was all races, colors, creeds, and sexes. She usually carried a huge lighter, but I never saw her smoke. She was a classy dame, all right. Said she had an uncle, some guy named Sam. He'd sent her to me as a last resort. I guess he was too old or too busy to make it himself. From the picture she carried, this Sam character was tough to figure. His most distinguishing features was he wore funny clothes and this outrageous matching top hat. But Liberty said he was okay, and I'm not in the habit of arguing with beautiful dames. When Liberty first told me her story, I figured she was in the wrong department. So I says, "You ought to be in missing persons, Miss Liberty," I says. But she wouldn't have any part of it.
No,
Someone must be killing the right to vote. People wouldn't just be quitting like this.
The tear in the corner of her eye, the pain in her expression told me she was sincere and tore at my ticker a little. I knew then I was hooked. I took the case. Now, when people turn up missing, it's not unusual to expect that foul play is involved. But every instinct I had told me this was different. I figured this was more likely a case of neglect. This voting right wasn't dead. Somebody had just forgotten how much they needed it. The years of pain and anguish had tried their best to chip away at this lovely lady. But even the pain of being neglected had failed to dim Liberty's glow. She had a kind of beauty that couldn't ever really die. So I listened carefully while she filled me in on the details. The whole reason for voting was to elect people or pass laws. People who was elected made a bunch of decisions, like how to raise money to pay for schools, highways, and roads, or whether to go to war, or how to work for peace. It was heavy stuff, all right. One of Liberty's biggest concerns was that people seemed disinterested in some of the elections that affected them the most. Oh, sure, there was pretty good turnout for presidential elections. They seemed to be the biggies. Or when some controversial issue had flooded the media, like, for instance, marijuana laws, no deposit bottles, or no return prison sentences. But often the turnout was pitiful low for elections for local government, even though Liberty showed me where city and state governments actually spent a lot more of a guy's tax dollars than a president. There were people who complained about the buildup of nuclear weapons, but wouldn't vote in a local election even though one pothole might cost them $65 alignment job. At the moment, I didn't have any really good theories about why people weren't voting so much. So I suggested to Liberty that maybe it was just no fun. She quickly set me straight.
Well, it doesn't cost anything, and it only takes a few minutes. It feels great while you're doing it, and afterwards it leaves you with a wonderful glow all through your body. Now, what could be more fun than that?
I could see your point. I decided I'd hit the streets for some leads, right after I took a cold shower. It was becoming clear I'd have to go back to the basics on this one. I'd broken up plenty of rackets before by using the old time-tested basic theory that you had to uncover the motive, the opportunity, and the method before you could solve any case. I decided to start with motive, and right away the case took a turn toward intrigue. People had plenty of reasons to vote. Certainly they paid a lot of taxes, so you think they'd want some kind of say about how the money was spent. This right to vote had made the country what it is today. Now, this neglect of the voting privilege was threatening to make the country what it also is today. A lot of people seemed to have opinions about how things were being run, so where was everybody when it came time to use the most important tool they had to voice their opinion?